we can please sign into the bottom of the agenda as per usual, please. That'd be great.
Just put it in for you,
just hang on a minute, because we've got a few people coming in on different links, so we'll try and get there in the end. Hi Phil, how's your typing fingers today? Are they all looking cool? Fantastic, love it, love it. Justin outside showing us some, oh no, it's gone there. There we go. Okay, we're getting quite a few people coming in. We're averaging about 25 on the calls. We are increasing as we, Douglas noted in the media. Hiya. So, someone, if you can just make sure you mute yourself. Is that me?
I think that's James, actually. He's just coming online.
If you can come in, that'd be great, please. How are we doing with the recording, Adam? Are we up? Are we doing our posting Telegram and everything like that for letting people know that we're around? And we're live streaming on YouTube, I take it. Cool, okay then. So I shall carry on with the usual format. I'll just, while people are getting on board, I'll just sort of talk through last week's takeaways, kindly provided by Phil. So we are, again, there was a request for continuing to share weekly wins with the external comms group, and I sort of had a quick check around. We're getting quite a lot of traffic on Twitter, etc., etc. So that's something really good. Again, if we can make sure we're sending those weekly wins out as quickly as we can. With a quick note here about the governance calls going 3 times a week. They have been 3 times a week. They weren't 3 times a week this week because I think we aren't running on Wednesday and Friday, to my knowledge. Is that right, Friday as well, Adam? Wednesday and Friday that we're not doing this week?
I think we're still planning on Friday.
Okay, cool.
Just missing Wednesday.
Yep.
Just missing Wednesday. So the guys on the governance call are having a light week this week, only going 3 calls. Again, a plea for more eyes on those calls and more people on that Slack group. There is quite a bit of heavy lifting doing there, and some of it's my lifting, which you might want to help out with that. So we've got some, there's people asking the Telos Africa, we're asking for some more chats on the community rewards token. If we can make sure that we're in the Slack comments and we're pushing those through. We've rescheduled the Telos call for an hour back, so some people can wake up a little later, or some people can go a little later to lunch, to their meal in the evenings, which is me. So it all depends on whereabouts in the world you are. But we seem to have successfully done that, so that's great. There's going to be a review of the quick start guide for onboarding. So anybody got any feedback on that? If they want to give that to the team, that would be fantastic. And then there was some requests for discussion for the funding of the Telos Foundation immediately at launch. I know that there's not been a lot of chat in the Telos Foundation Slack group, and I think we need to move that up a little bit, although the government has done a little bit of work on the Telos Foundation stuff. More round discussions required, and there was a note here to building landing pages. We had a chat about landing pages last week, and we've moved that forward, but that's something else that we might want to consider moving forward, or someone have a comment on that. So that was last week. This is this week, ladies and gentlemen. So if we want to make a start, as usual, we can jump to Douglas for his opening comments, please, Douglas. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. I'm just going to try and keep these real short, believe it or not. I think otherwise we're just recapturing what we're going to be talking about later in the groups. We have Jim is going to join me this week, tomorrow night on the Telos Talks, presented by EOS Talks live hangout. So if anybody wants to check that out, we'll make sure let's add a link. That's going to be really fun. We are doing tons of development. The website is really coming together. If you look at the website now, you can see that the checklist is coming. Things are getting checked off. We're really making a lot of progress there. In governance, we've gone through a lot of the documents, and we'll talk about that a bit more. Really making good progress, and now the new arbitration stuff has started coming in, which has been a big bottleneck, which we're finally starting to break through. So lots of great stuff happening. I think I'll just call it there and hand it over to the working group chairs.
Okay, Douglas, thanks for that. So if we could start with arbitration, Brett or Douglas, want to go with that? That's the first thing that's on our list, please.
Yeah, this is Brett from EOS The World. We've got about a half dozen attorneys that are basically signed on in principle to working with us. One in Canada, a few in the United States, a couple in the Caribbean. We're looking for people from other locales. It's a little hard because we don't want just anybody. We want people who are only the best. You know, I don't have a global outreach. So if anyone has attorneys that are, you know, well respected in other locations, a few more would be ideal. I don't think we want to start. The general consensus is we don't want to start with 20 or 30. That's more than we're going to need. A handful to go is good. And other than that, there's not a lot of input other than the fact that it might be useful to have our arbitration rules signed off by a law firm. That's something that I've begun discussing a little bit with Douglas, just in case things were to happen in the future that were unpleasant. We could point to a law firm and say, well, these rules and regulations were signed off on by a law firm. So, and we don't want those people to be the same people who are doing the arbitration, because we don't want the people making the rules then making decisions based on the rules. There's a conflict there. But other than that, you know, things are coming around. It's good. No bad things to say.
Thanks, Brad. If I can follow on that a little bit, I would say it's fantastic. So what Brad is and also Adam have pulled together so far are we've gotten some people to actually sign up for this in principle. We are on the website. We are preparing a campaign page, even though we're expecting arbitrators, elected arbitrators to campaign. We don't expect them to do it in the same way that a block producer would. So we're going to make it very easy. We're going to have a centralized campaign page at first, and then that can spin off. As I said, there's a new the arbitrator agreement, which is almost as long as the Telos operating agreement, is out now. We've run through a quick technical look at it, and it's going to go into governance. But we can at least give people get that out in the world and give people a look at how that's likely to operate. And that also allows us a positive look at that allows us to follow up with the reg arbitrator and minimum arbitrator requirements that sort of close the circle on governance documents around that. So people will know what they're signing up for. I think while Brett makes great points about getting some attorneys to sign off on these, ultimately these will be documents that are ratified by us, and then subject to ratification and amendment by the whole of the electorate. And so that, I think, will actually add even better security than some outside law firm. Because it's will have been accepted by the group. So we have there's a lot of crossover there's a certain amount of crossover with how arbitration is being handled on EOS, just because it's arbitration. But there's a lot unique that we're going to be doing that I think will be more streamlined and better on chain. So I look forward to sharing with everybody, and please take a look at that. And again, yeah, if we have anybody, I would say let's get as many people involved as possible We can always call the ranks of interested parties down if they're not all hitting the same standard. But certainly, I'm sure that Brett was never suggesting not a lot of people. We were just saying let's make sure we aim for a continued high standard.
Okay, thanks, Douglas. I think it's important to note that as the documents are going through the process in the government, Douglas is posting them on Medium, and they are there, and they're sort of like being sweated out there. So if you do want to check everything that's going on, then please do have a look at them from the website. I think that's important to get this system underway where we do things, it goes out there, and they're sort of like just around in the ether for a bit, and hopefully people can come back to them. So, badge system. Rob, James, do you want to take the floor, please?
Sure. So we're a little behind on getting the onboarding video out. We're going to do that today and make it available to the group through Slack before the end of the working day. So that'll be available. It'll just be a nice reference where when new people come into the group, they can go review that and see how to use the app. But other than that, the Slicing Pie contribution system is live. Please start adding contributions. The UI is fairly simple. It's just a data entry app. Chairs, please start reviewing and approving. I've approved one contribution just to show you all that it works and that it calculates everyone's split in a graphical format. We'll be able to export that data. So any bug reports can find their way to the Trello board for the bounty system. I'm using that actively to develop this, so please provide bug reports. I did do a number of updates today, and I figured just as another reminder, the purpose of this app, we all agreed that we're going to use this methodology in order to determine how many founders tokens each contributor gets, and subsequently each team, based on how much efforts they're exerting to launch Telos. So the whole point is to incentivize work here. So we voted on that, like, I think the second meeting. So it's really important that everyone starts to use this, starts to put their contributions in, chairs need to start approving it. This is the methodology we agreed on. So please, if you're not using it, start using it. If you have questions, hit us up on Slack. I'm happy to get on video calls. I'm happy to take your feedback and make feature requests to make it better. So this is really important for getting your founders tokens. We're using a self-reporting system. If you don't report your contributions, then they're not in there. They're not in the calculation. So it's on you to, pay yourself, essentially. And yeah, so please start using it, and I will make sure that we have a video resource as well. And just to really beat a dead horse, I'm going to share my screen and walk through the app again. So you all can see how to use it. And I know it's not the greatest app ever created, but it'll do. So you can see my browser here. What I'm going to do is actually walk through a number of flows really quick for the group. So as I said, I moved some things around. Right now, I'm the only one with an approved contribution. That's why it says I have 100% of the slices, but that'll change as we start approving contributions. And this will actually show the breakdown. So you can view all of the contributions over here. We can see network maintenance actually submitted a few, and DApp outreach and translations. But over here, the status is reported for all of those. So we need the chair for those groups to come in and actually sign off on those contributions or deny them. But I'm assuming most contributions won't get denied. And a chair can actually do that. So if you've told me you're a chair, I've set you up with that permission. So you'll have some additional things you can do. You can invite new users down here under administration on the side, left side. You can also add work rates, and you can review contributions. So chairs are kind of like our group of admins. We can see who's a chair by actually going to the user roster. This is one of the things I added so that everyone can kind of see who's the chair. So if I type in chair, we'll see all the currently configured chairs here. And all of these people have the ability to invite more users in via email. It'll just send an email. So we can use, the chairs can onboard anyone in their working group that's not in yet, essentially. And they'll be able to approve contributions that are in their meeting type. So when you want to add a contribution, you go to manage contributions here. We can see each group is listed. And so the chair of each of these groups can do the approval, essentially. So, you know, if you're doing stuff for development, then the development chairs can approve. And we have these work groups. So this is how you add stuff in. You just put numbers in. They can be decimals as well. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. The hardest part, I'm going to show you the big gotcha. It's actually when you're creating a new user. So if I go to invite, I'm just going to put in my personal email. A lot of people are getting snagged on this, so I figured it made sense to go over it again. So invitation sent, I can go over to my email. I can see there's a mail here. Join Slicing Pie Manager. So I added a little note because this form doesn't have client validation, so it doesn't tell you when there's a problem. But the password must be at least 6 characters and include an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, and a digit. If you don't do that, it just kind of throws you somewhere else and it doesn't tell you there's a problem. And I'm sorry about that. So I just wanted to go over that again for the group. But I'm going to recap this again in a video and then provide that so that we can reference it to each other too. So anyone that's not on the call today will be able to view that video. So I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, we've agreed on using this, so we need everyone to start using it.
Rob, may I interject with a question? Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, go ahead.
So quick question. So different categories of contributors are being compensated at different hourly rates. Is there a process by which we would determine if a developer qualifies as a senior developer versus a journeyman? You know, a junior C++. I mean, how do we sort of distinguish this, and how do we kind of formalize where we would classify each other?
It's a great question. So we actually started drafting up a list of guidelines. Let me pull that up really quick. That's another thing we need to make available to everyone. So we have a bounty system drive folder. And essentially it's...
Can
James,
I interrupt?
are you trying to talk?
Yeah, if I can. Sorry, I'm using my phone today, so I'm not sure how this is working, but hopefully you can hear me. I just wanted to say that we talked to the compensation consultants, and generally speaking, there's a year of experience range between, I think it's 0 to 2 years is the junior level, and then 2 to, I think, 6 years is the proficient level, and then 7+ years is an expert. And these aren't things that we just made up. These are generally accepted ranges of experience and levels that they use for compensation consultants.
Yeah, and on that note, it's up to the chairs. So the whole idea of making this chair system was the quality of the data is going to be up to the chairs. So the best we can do is kind of propose some guidelines and hope that the chairs agree on the guidelines and all implement them faithfully. So it's kind of an honor system. So, you know, if you have years and years of experience, should charge senior. If you're doing something that you don't have years and years of experience doing, maybe you should charge a lower rate. It's an honor system kind of thing. And the chairs can say, hey, I really don't think you're doing senior level work, so I'm not going to approve this contribution because I think you should be a journeyman. It's up to the chairs. Yeah. That's the easiest way to do it in a decentralized group like this.
Okay. So Rob, in my case, Amplified as a team of engineers, we'll just self-identify, and then, we'll make sure the chair is comfortable with those identifications and also the output.
Yeah, I would say if there's any doubt, and in fact, I would recommend this anyway, please talk to your chairs ahead of time as to what kind of range you think. And I think that that's something that the contributors and the chairs should be kind of talking about and arranging so that there's no surprises when people turn their hours in and they expect a different range than someone else.
Can I ask a question about that? Is there, specifically with development, is there anything, how are we accommodating the fact that certain people are doing like very core level work, whether or not they have 7 years, like maybe nobody has 7 years doing core level EOCO work. Is that?
Yeah, there's two different things. One thing is that generally speaking, we adjusted the rates for that core level dev work up a little bit compared to market rates because we're trying to gauge the value of things in relation to what they're worth on Telos for the Telos launch. And on top of that, I think that it's something where, again, I would like the contributors to work with their chairs. I think that that's reasonable to say, hey, this is very important work. And, I think that in this field, I may not have 7 years, but I think I'm an expert at this compared to everyone else. And finally, I would say that there are commissions that are paid for core work. So accomplishments that are done for things that have to do with launching Telos, you get an extra commission on top of that.
Roger, do you want to jump in on the feedback issue? You need to be unmuted, please.
Well, no, I was just going to say that looks great. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to dive off, and Beth's not on the call either. So thanks ever such a lot for that, Rob, on the pie slicing system. We get stuck into that. I didn't see my name on that list, but maybe that's because you're too scared. I'm going to give you all sorts of feedback, as is my way. So I'll try and be gentle with you. But no, I was just asking if I could go next with my section, so I could dash off. But I don't want to interrupt proceedings.
But is Jan? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry. How far back in time should we go with filling this up, or are we starting at this point in time?
I think we need to go back, Jan, simply because there's been a lot of work done. I'd say basically the only people really that should be putting in time pre-launch announcement are good block folks, I think, that actually worked before the pre-launch. And then some of us came on as partners and we launched and we started collaborating. And I think that's at the point at which we need to attempt our best to put some rational contributions down for that.
I think there were some meeting times that a few early participants had prior to launch that I think would be, they were certainly productive and helpful to me. And so I value those highly, what the feedback I got. So I think those should be included.
Yeah, just to be real clear, we are expecting people to enter time over the past few weeks, certainly, that they've been working on in the launch group.
Would it be okay if I do one amount per week, if the chair is okay with that?
Yes, I think that's absolutely the case, especially for work that's been done previously where you want to aggregate everything. I think that's certainly appropriate.
Good question.
Quick question from me. I've just submitted one for a test and I can't delete it. Is it possible to modify submitted ones?
Yep. So if you go to manage contributions, there's an edit button and a delete button. So you can edit and delete your own, but only before they're approved. So we can't go back and change approved ones.
Okay, guys. Thanks for that. I'm going to jump in here because we're getting close to 10 minutes on this. And also I think any questions regarding the sort of minutiae of the app, etc., Rob can deal with on Slack, and I think he'll be more than happy to take any questions on Slack and let's have these debates, and we can sort of talk all these out on Slack and come back if there's any problems. So unless anyone's really jumping up and down, I'm going to move us on, and I'll just let Roger jump in with his before he needs to go, if that's okay. So yeah, I'm going to let Roger just jump in, and we're going down to exchange and outreach, I think. Is that correct, Roger?
Yeah, great. Sorry to rush you on, everybody, but Beth's not here today, and I have a family commitment, so you know how it goes. But so I'm just going to jump the queue there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so on the exchange outreach, obviously we're continuing to pull together all the exchange documents that we need. It's turning out to be obviously quite a big job, because there's lots of things in there which we're kind of going, oh, we do really need that, we do really need that. So it's spurring us on to work through specific documents now, rather than having to deal with them later. So it's all good investment in time, which can be used over and over again on other applications, aside from the Bitfinex one, which is what we're using to pull it all together. There's been some discussions about creative ways to manage the requirement for funding exchange listings. Particularly Joseph had come up with something which I was keen to just make sure where everybody's discussing that. Is Joseph on the call? Does anybody know? Well, perhaps we can clarify where in Slack that.
Joseph is on the call.
Hi, Joseph. So yeah, where was everybody just discussing that? Because I was trying to find it and I couldn't get onto the thread. So perhaps we can post that in the notes afterwards.
Yeah, so let's make a note to post that for sure. I believe Beth is actually listening in on the call. She had
she said she'd be in the car,
so
and
you won't be able to speak.
Yeah.
Hi, Beth. So we caught up a little bit before that. So she asked me to weigh in if anything necessary for her. But things are really coming together. I think I realize for everyone that. We would love to be announcing a bunch of big exchanges. There's a very real challenge doing that before we launch the coin. A lot, here's the reality. It's very, very common. In fact, it's most common today for companies to come out, be able to mint a bunch of coins because they did an ICO. Telos is not a project like that. Telos is a throwback to kind of an old day of a real actual decentralized project that a lot of exchanges may have never actually dealt with. And so all their legalities and whatnot are based up around somebody who did an ICO. And so there's a little bit of re-education actually, teaching people how a truly decentralized project works. In terms of exchanges and why you don't need any of those things that they've convinced they need, and then also the fact that all the things that we're doing that make Telos not a security, not printing anything before we launch, not raising any money, therefore not having all this legal stuff. Those are slight setbacks in terms of speedily getting exchanges on board. In the long term, they're huge wins for us. We will be very glad that we've done these for the entire existence of Telos, but right now it's a little bit of a setback.
Also, the other thing that we're being hampered by is the fact that all of the exchange applications have been designed to try and weed out as many of these sort of scammy coins that are raising millions and millions of pounds, and so they're kind of forcing us to go down a specific route. In the applications, compulsory fields that we can't skip, but actually we don't have an ICO to talk about, so we're having to be creative in how we submit the applications, and also if we can find a way to circumnavigate some of those restrictions that shouldn't apply to Telos.
The minute we get this launched and we get DApps and people are actually using it, and people understand that this is actually a working major network with every bit as much power as EOS, that is available, they will come to us. And so I hesitate. It's certainly been mentioned to us without naming any names. It's certainly been mentioned to us that if we could come up with a bunch of funds, or if we could print a very exceedingly large number of tokens for some exchanges, that all these problems could disappear. And while that is a possibility, I don't think that's necessarily in the spirit. And I think that maybe we soldier on, get the exchanges we can get, and let them come to us when they understand that this is a true project, and because it will clear up a lot of their concerns once they see it running. And that's expected, right? Because it's very easy for somebody to come up and go, oh, you can't really tell until you launch the people who are going, oh, we're a new project. You don't need this paperwork from us. And how do the exchanges tell between those people who aren't doing anything and us without a lot of deep investigation that they don't want to pay to do? Much easier for them to wait a couple weeks, see the network working, and then go from there. But a lot of work. Roger and Beth and everybody in that group are doing a lot of work in exchange outreach.
Okay, thanks for that, Roger. Are we okay to move on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much.
Okay, cheers. So going back to community rewards, Paul, does anybody want to talk about that? There isn't anything on the agenda, so I'm assuming that
Sorry, I do have something for that. I just wanted to say that the Community Rewards program is up. It's working well. We have, I think, over 80 people at this time signed up. People are contributing. So it's working great. The thing I wanted to talk about with the group was simply to ask for people to help with the group, because we need to be moderating the Telegram channel, and we will need to have a bunch of people to review rewards. So join up the Community Rewards program, because we need some help.
And fire up that social media too. Tweet. People get paid more by having more likes and hits and things like that. So let's give it to them. Let's engage. We're asking people to engage with us. Let's engage with them. Would be my suggestion.
Okay, thanks for that, Douglas. I think that's really important that we. I did just do a quick look on our Telegram channel, and we've got over 800 people on that channel at the moment, which is a big channel for Telegram. And I think and we've got a lot of people on here, so we're really sort of growing, and we need to sort of make sure that we're using that resource to spread all the ideas. And
I did some further math on that, Jim, and if you add up our English Telegram with our Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Russian telegrams, we're well over 1,000. It looks like.
Well, that's fantastic, and we've got 6 million tokens to give away, so we need to crack on with that, don't we? Really, we're going to manage to do that. So that's
1 million, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I'll get all those mixed up. Okay, so do we want to go down to that outreach? There's nothing on the agenda. Does anybody want to speak about that? Are we okay?
I'll just jump in and give a quick update. Justin from Infinity Block here. Just a quick recap. I haven't joined in the last few weeks with the conversation, just because we haven't had any. Well, we've been doing our major announcements through the weekly updates for one, but we've just been chugging along. So just a quick recap is that we've still got the majority of the major tools and wallets are on board, so we're pretty good on that side of things. In terms of the dApps, we've got a lot of interest from dApp developers, and we're in conversations with probably tens of dApp development companies and groups, and that's going pretty well. A lot of them are just waiting on sort of us to get closer to that live network, and more certainty around RAM and the costs and the demand on the network. We've just drafted the landing page for dApp developers, and we're pretty sure that will kind of encourage a lot more to make a commitment, hopefully. But we'll see how we go. But things are looking pretty positive overall.
And Justin, you are in the midst of putting out a presentation deck that's really great it's going to be really great for dApp developers too, that you shared with me the other day. It looks awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we accidentally made a bit of a deck in the process of creating that landing page. So, yeah, we'll be able to present that as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Justin, thanks a lot for that. Okay, so I've dropped down to, we've done exchange. So again, external comms weekly wins, that's obviously the standing item for people to make sure that we send those weekly wins out to the external comms team.
Did we skip development?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's Roger messing me about doing these. So development. Yeah, Peter, are we here? Anybody?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes, over the last over this last week, we've had a lot of progress in the smart contract development. Craig, who's not on the call, has been making great strides setting up, ratify, amend, and creating or designing a voting process that can be used across contract. That way, these smart contracts that have the shared functionality can operate in a similar way. Also, last week we had good calls with the Ian and the Amplified team. The Amplified team is now working on a new monitor with at least well-defined requirements, and we've been Modelin and his team have forked EOS Tracker and their front-end UI and are now working on the back end, and there's going to be new progress, and hopefully soon we'll see a new released monitor with improved functionality and at least a more stable version of that. And then we've also got Ed Silva working on missed blocks, and currently, as of yesterday, he was able to in a debug environment track the number of missed blocks each producer has, and this is a great step towards some of the other features of automated enforcement, basically calling remove or unreg producer when a producer has failed to produce a certain number of blocks within a certain time frame, and that'll be one of the next features that we build on top of this missed blocks functionality. Yeah, I think that is all, Douglas, unless you think I missed something here.
A couple things. Thanks, Peter. That's great. And Peter has this way of very matter of fact talking about like Jerry that I don't have, of like just very matter of fact running through all these things. Every one of those things is like a headline. They're amazing processes that are going forward. I would say one thing I would want to mention is give everybody a heads up. We had initially sort of promised that, if somebody has not produced in 30 minutes, they're out. What we're discovering when we're really looking at this is, it's possible for somebody to produce every 29 and a half minutes and still not be a great asset to the block producing community. And so we are in the process of actually digging in, figuring this out. We are looking at something where we're saying, maybe what we want to make sure of is that we're really looking to weed out those people and rotate out so that they can correct their processes and get back in. Those people who are somebody who's very far fallen out of the norms. So it may not be, it's very likely, in fact, that it's not going to be a 30 minutes and you're out scenario. It's going to be a more technically adept scenario. The problem there is some dunderhead wrote 30 minutes in a white paper sometime, and without like deeply talking to a dev team first about how exactly to best do it. So that is going to evolve. I think Peter also, depending on whether he's ready to announce it on this call or not, or if we just say watch the space, I think there's a pretty cool tools announcement that Peter's going to be coming out with today. Can you talk about that, Peter?
Yeah, I can. So currently in this space, in our GitHub repositories, we have the Grow tool, and there wasn't a large amount of helpful tools to develop that. There is, we wanted to make the tool chain agnostic, and currently we're using the Telos CLI tool under the hood in order to facilitate functionality, and that made it very difficult to switch that over to EOS.io or other networks. So in order to make it agnostic, I decided to use the RPC API. And there aren't any helpful. There is one tool, EOS Pi, which is made by EOS New York, and it's got some functionality. It is able to send transaction, but it is missing a lot of core functionality. It doesn't have exception handling, and it's not exactly lightweight. But I'm currently in the process of designing EOS Python, which will just be I guess competition for EOS Pi, and it's going to be a lightweight RPC API interface where you can create your own Python tools using the API directly, and it should have validation and exception handling, so it's developer friendly, and it should be you should be able to install it using pip for anybody that's familiar with Python. So I should have my first version of that done today, and then we'll be adding features periodically over the course of forever, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So what that really means is, Peter, we got to have we got to talk. What that really means, Peter's been working for several weeks on creating a whole new programming language for EOS. We were going to build it for Telos, and he decided that he could make it work for all EOSio. It's a Python version. It's called EOS Python. Just 2 or 3 days ago, as we were looking around in the space, we discovered that EOS New York has in progress a similar tool that's much further behind and not where we are, not ready to release, and doesn't have the advantages. That's called EOS Pi, but EOS Python is going to come out today and going to get updated, and it's going to be a great tool for all EOS chains. And that it's a share back from Telos into the EOS world. So we're really excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
I believe Marlon had something to input.
Oh yeah, and Marlon, and also by the way, the Grow tool that Peter that we've been using very successfully to spin up clusters of nodes and things like that. Peter's also now going to release that shortly as a cross-platform. That's what he was getting at, using EOS Python, and so that will also be something we're sharing back. And then Marlon has done, we need a drum roll for Marlon, because what he's done was really cool with Squirrel. Marlon, can you talk about it a bit?
Yeah, sure. I'll be brief. So we released the latest version of Squirrel, which, as you guys saw in some of the video previews, supports multi-chains. We also added the ability to create free accounts on Telos. And I encourage you guys to go ahead and play around with it. For those of you without accounts, you can now create it. It's a very simple user experience, which we know have been lacking in the EOS.io community. So that's about it.
And Marlon, if I'm correct, so Squirrel is a code fork of GrayMass, and you've now gone in and added multi-chain. You've added this free account system, all this code. I think you're working with us to be able to take some of the new innovations we're adding in TIP 5s that are going to be extremely exciting as soon as we can share those, which is not quite yet, and integrate those in that tool, and then. If my understanding is right, you're going to take that code and we're going to respond. We're going to offer that back to GrayMass in the form of suggested pull requests, so that if they would like to bring all this development that you've done into the main GrayMass, so that all their installed user base can benefit from them, they can choose to do that. Is that sort of the plan?
Absolutely, 100% accurate.
Not too shabby.
It sounds impressive. It all sounds very impressive. Am I happy to move on development? You done? Okay, thanks. So governance, Adam, if you want to drop on this, we've got a few things in there. So over to you.
Yep, we've made continued progress on the network operating agreement last week. Had a little bit of a blocker with the arbitration documents because we kind of just skipped over that section and kept moving on. But now that Douglas and team has released the arbitration document, we can kind of start playing around with that again. And I'm going to anticipate it should probably, if we dedicate an entire week to it, we'd probably be able to finish it up and clean it up and have it looking really nicely for another re-release to the outward community and the contributors group here. Next would be that last week, instead of the network operating agreement, because we had a blocker, we actually reviewed the Telos Foundation V1 document. That's more of like an outline. It's not supposed to be as technical as a actual smart contract or recurring contract in the Constitution. It looked pretty good. Got really great feedback from the group as a whole. But I'm going to be putting in a couple of little clarifications, or rather checks and balances, so that people can't necessarily use the foundation to enrich themselves in the short term. And just a general reminder that the Wednesday meeting is canceled. We still plan on doing that Friday meeting, though.
Okay, Adam. Thanks for that. And again, another plea for anybody who wants to join us on those calls. It seems like the sort of governance side of things and the sort of coding development side of things are really pushing through fast. So there's a lot of work to be done on both sides. So that's fantastic. Nothing from meetings. Over to network maintenance then, guys, please. If we could have an update from you guys.
Hey everybody, how are y'all? Had we reached 3 million blocks. We're doing some testing with weighted voting, and in doing so, unvoted the fund account that was used to activate the network, and caused some irregularities with how voting is coming up. It's coming up as negative numbers. Pretty sure that's because the fund account is still staked, so we're in the process of getting that unstaked. And then we've got a series of nodes that are not producing that will be forced removing this afternoon after giving everybody a 24-hour heads up. In fact, it's bad enough. We're kind of on the edge of the lib not moving forward, and that actually happened last night while I was sleeping. So we'll get some producing nodes back in the top 21 today. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, quick question. So two things. So JT, that's 3 million blocks on the current stage, on stage 2, right?
That's correct. Yeah, 3 million blocks on stage 2.
So I was doing a little bit of back of napkin kind of work, and I think the for the lifetime of the testnet, I think we're around 12 million blocks. Is that in the ballpark?
I feel like we got to 5 million. No, that's all right. I think stage 1. Well, no, you're probably right, because we had 1 and 1.2.
Yeah, 1 and 1.1 and
around 5 million.
0. Rough ballpark. I think it's around. I did some calculations. I think it's pretty close. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. It's pretty close to actually 12 million overall over the life of the whole of all the stages of the testnet, including stage 0. So that's kind of a big thing, because I think that's over almost all blockchains in existence. So that's kind of cool. And also, it was interesting seeing that the problem with non-producers. But I think tying in the note that Ed Silva at GoodBlock is really making some great progress around removing non-producers. I think we could see. Hopeful that this week that's gonna be the end of that problem, and we're gonna once we bring that into the sort of the testnet environment, that's not gonna happen again. Is what I think we were gonna see. And when we talk about this next week, I think we're gonna talk about that problem being done.
Plus, it's an easy way. We won't have the problems that Jungle had. We can fix it rather than having to fork the testnet. Yeah,
for anyone who's not, Jungle Testnet run by Crypto Alliance, awesome. We like them very much. We all took part back in the day, and they continue to be great participants in the OCO community. They did have a problem. If you're not aware, that's pretty interesting that we can learn a lot from. That is, their faucet allowed a lot of groups to come in and basically become a huge whale. There was a huge whale on their test net, and that whale literally voted in intentionally a bunch of bad producers, and those bad producers shut down the network. Failed to produce. The lib got stuck, and they couldn't move. And the only option they had was to roll back to a previously saved state of the test net. Now, that's a test net, but that's a very clear exploit that could happen on the main net if you have situations like super concentrated voting, right? Sort of bad actor approaches by BPs, no chance, no method for removing non-producing BPs, and no minimums required so that anyone can come in and register. So these are 4 things that came together to create a crisis. These 4 things existed on their testnet. These 4 things exist on the EOS mainnet. Some of these things still exist on our network, but by the time before we launch, we will have none of these things. They will all be gone, and that will not be exploits that Telos needs to worry about.
If I can jump in, I've been enjoying Jungle Testnet since almost the first minute.
Sorry, excuse me, Joseph. Can you just say who you are, just so people are listening?
Yes, this is Joseph from EOS Barcelona. So I've been there enjoying the whole crisis. That's been very interesting because I have learned a few technical tricks to provide trust between nodes. So the whole experience of trying to recover the network from a fork, has been, I believe, very, very valuable. So I will share the insights on Slack with the network team.
Thank you for that. That's great, Joseph. Thank you. Anybody else? We happy? Okay, I'm going to move on now to onboarding, but I think we're okay with onboarding unless I don't think Johnny's on the call. So I'm going to move on to security.
I'm sorry, real quick, Jim.
Yeah.
It seems like I've been getting some private messages and seeing that some people are having problems with our onboarding. So can we have people in that group go in and check and make sure that we're processing everybody, because we don't want to leave anybody out of the group.
That's actually, I think, because the test net's down. Sorry. Are you talking about onboarding onto the test net?
No, just onboarding into the Slack, into the private group.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
No, you're good, man.
Okay, JT, thank you for that. Yeah, so we'll just make sure that the onboarding guys are up to speed. If you hear of any problems, then please shout up in Slack and we'll alert people to it. Azad, do you want to go with security?
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon all. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points to cover. One is just to go back to the block producer infrastructure requirements document. I think that's proving to be popular as more people find out about it. And I noticed some questions on Telegram, specifically on that subject. So if you come across those, just send them a link to that Medium article that we published last week. On the second point, I was on the Exchange Outreach working group call last week. There was a question raised on data security as part of what we need to submit. What is Telos doing regarding the data security? So that is something that we are working on now. Just wanted to report on that one. It's a complex area, especially within in terms of the blockchain technologies. So there is a lot of work to do that, but we'll have an initial presentation on the subject. But it is one of those areas where we will have a continuous improvement process in place. That's all from me. Any questions?
maybe you can add about the GDPR that we're going to start also some work in that area, the privacy stuff.
Hi, Syed. Can you introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are?
Yeah, it's me, Syed from Sweden Cornet. So I was just asking Azad, maybe he can also talk something about the GDPR, because last week we decided that we should also write our proposition in that area.
Yes, so there is an overlap with the data security GDPR. It's in the title. So we'll be covering the subject as well. But again, it's one of those big areas. Thank you, Said, for reminding.
Okay, thank you for that. The next one is marketing and social media. CJ was on the call, but she's had to drop off. She did ask me just to mention that she's written some blurb in the agenda, which is basically around a press kit which has many pieces that the team are putting together, and as soon as the press kit is ready with a lot of information, it'll be pushed out. So I think the idea is to keep an eye on that, and they'll be talking to us about that as soon as they can get that together. But that sounds quite a big project come together. The next, unless anybody's got anything on that. No. Okay, the next thing is Douglas and the Telos Foundation. If you want to just speak about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, in our group, as Adam mentioned, we looked at the proposal for an overview of what would be the structure of the Telos Foundation and how would voting tokens be distributed. That is out and public, and you can look at it, and we're going to make some slight updates due to the excellent recommendations that came up in the review process. What I want to mention is two things. First of all, with that, once we have some buy-in for that and how tokens are going to be distributed, I think we need to call it to a vote to approve. Once we have that, then it allows us to say, okay, we know who the probable token owners, voting token owners are. The voting tokens, by the way, have no value except they allow voting as a DAO for how Telos Foundation grants will be given and any administration will be done, such as ongoing social media, ongoing DApp, and exchange outreach on onboarding personnel, things like that. There are going to have to be some administrations there and some rules on the people who do that. So those are the things that we discuss. We want to start. Once we have that list of probable voters, which is mostly going to be all the active contributors of this group, plus some of the most active contributors in the community group, because we don't want to leave out people passionate there just because they don't like meetings. So once we have an idea about who the voters are, then we can start taking some of these things that we promised but can only fund through the Telos Foundation, such as bringing back dust accounts, bringing our process for funding the first 1 million free new user accounts, things like that. And then we can actually say, hey, we're the voters, and we pledge to sign to support these grants when they come up, and then it gives some confidence to people who may need to rely on that it's actually more than just an empty promise. It's a slightly empty promise. No, it's something heartfelt that people are going to get behind because our votes are transparent, and so if we lie, if we break our pledge, people will know we have. So that's one thing. That's what having this ratified allows us to do. Secondly, we are looking, now that we understand that we are probably going to have a board we need somebody to administer. Ultimately, that board will elect the board, and the board will ultimately recommend or elect an executive director and a RAM administration director, who just run those administrations for promotion and things like that, and then for handling RAM, publish guidance price. We need to have some people start thinking about being candidates for the board positions. It's not required that somebody be a Telos Foundation voting member or in this group or anything. So anybody passionate about this should get in touch with us, and we'll start creating a list of people who might be voted on very quickly after activation. So let's not do that last minute. So if you're interested, if you know somebody who's good, if you know somebody in the community who's not with us right now, but would still be a great participant, can possibly, because I think we would like to bring in some business leaders as well to give more weight in the business community or governance or community or social, or people who are passionate about UBI or anything that we think that Telos may want some voices on the board level. Let's get those people into a process so we can start talking about voting for them. At the same time, we're really going to need somebody before we can properly elect a RAM administration. We need somebody who can set up our first published guidance price and do some and set up an administration in the interim until it's validated to run that and pay for that. So that pay for that with the Telos Foundation funds. So and trade on that account. And that's going to be somebody, we're looking for somebody who's probably got a master's level or above degree in economics, would I think be good. Some relevant experience, both in markets and whatnot. And who is willing to sign on to not to the prohibitions, which include not trading RAM on their account, aside from like the very minor amount that they need to run their account or anything. Essentially, somebody willing to do this for the good of the network, and it will be paid ultimately, but initially, it's probably just to get this going. So, that would be great if it's somebody in the group. It'd also be great if somebody who's in the Telos EOS world, who is passionate about this and has those qualifications and wants to help make Telos a success in this way. So I just want to put that call out.
Okay, thanks for that, Douglas. I suppose that moves us. I'm going to move on from translations because I haven't got anything in there. Unless anybody wants to talk about that, we seem to be pretty up on those at the moment. And secondly, there's Douglas again on the RAM group. I don't know whether you're just going to repeat what you said there, Douglas, or
you just can't get rid of me. So the RAM that I was talking about is the published guidance for setting, supporting, and explaining and the published guidance price. What I'm talking about is with the RAM group, and please join us. We're looking for more voices here. It's very important how we're going to handle RAM. EOS RAM seems to be an issue that's not what it once was. But I don't think there's any proof that that's really fixed in an ongoing way. What we're trying to do in Telos is create as many tools as possible to make stable RAM for all the people who need it, the real users and the real dApp developers, without completely disabling the moderate amount of speculation that provides liquidity in the market. So one of the things which is replaced with the Bancor algorithm, which may not really be a great way to do it, actually, long term. So we've been looking. I'm going to come out with a position paper. I'm getting a lot of feedback, good feedback from people. Jesse at Kalios is giving me a lot of feedback there. I've been talking to people who are not publicly in our group as well. Really getting a lot of ideas about this, but looking very much towards, in addition to starting with low RAM and growing from there, and also the published guidance price approach, we're looking at an additional tool which we may want to create to make the RAM token tradable again, direct tradable, probably along with the Bancor model. Bancor algorithm contract trading at first, and then phasing that out. It's become my opinion in researching this that the rationale for using the Bancor model exclusively on the EOS mainnet is deeply flawed and misleading, and yet it still serves a good purpose for the beginning of the network. And I can talk about that another time. I won't take up the call's time for that. So we are looking to add more tools. That is my speech.
I'm not sure whether that was everybody saying that, Douglas, there, or there was.
No, I was like, I wish I had a button that would do that. That was so cute.
I've actually made one. It's right next to me here. So there we go. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Okay, just moving on to the last item there. I put a link to the launch page, which I think James created. So thank you for that. That's brilliant. I don't know whether it's been there yet, but if you haven't been there, click on that button and make sure you go there. We're meant to be having our first go-no-go vote by the end of this month, but I'm seeing in Telegram when it's coming up, when people are saying when launch, that we are managing to sort of calm those the clamour, and I think this idea of using this page to see where we are in the project, I think we need to directing people to that and make sure that we're doing that. But I don't think there's any point in us looking at it at the moment, because we said that we were going to look at that page to direct the groups to make sure that we are working in the right areas. I think we all know where we're working. I think that's a really good tool to point people to social media, off Telegram, to see where we are, to just make sure we manage this process, because we don't want to go down the road of the countdown and countdown discos, etc., to where we were before, because we need to do this in a calm, professional manner, which is what we're trying to achieve. I'll just sort of say that number 6 on there is next item. No one ever puts anything on as the next item. That's an open invitation to anybody. If you've got anything that's not covered on the calls, to add to that. But other than that, I'm going to move on to confirmation of the next meeting, which is the 18th of September, same time, which is the 1600 UTC. And if anyone hasn't got anything else, we are 5 minutes or 6 minutes under our cut-off time. So again, we've managed to achieve something, which is excellent. So thanks very much, everybody, and enjoy another week in Telos Land, and I'm sure we shall hook up on Slack and various meetings in between.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks,
everyone. See you guys.
Thanks. Bye.